All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Stu and the Nun. Checking my audio here. Hey, Rob, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well, sir, and yourself?
Good. How am I sounding there, man? 5x5 or what?
5x5, 5x5. How's my audio? Not too loud, is it?
Sounding good. No, you sounded good. Hey, everyone. Welcome to episode 337. I want to say is what I put it up. To tonight's show. Toby's got some family in town where he's at, so did not want to bug him. I don't want to even ask him to try to make it. But you should still be seeing him a lot more on here. He's been able to work out a schedule to do that, but gonna leave him alone this week. Let Rob, the unpaid producer, come in and earn his keep like we all earn ours, which is with nothing. And I want to say, unfortunately, it looks like as I started the show, now we are only on Facebook and YouTube tonight, not on X, because apparently now we need to have a premium count to live stream on X. That must have
Wow.
changed since last week. So maybe I'll throw it back to Twitch. Maybe we'll throw it to Instagram. I don't know, but it happened right when we were kicking it off. It was like, oh, you must have a premium account. So we'll look into that. But since we operate on zero budget, as in no money comes in, yeah, we have to we already pay enough for everything else. But so if you're watching on X and you jumped over on here because you could not find it, that's why you got to watch it here. So the Book of Face or the Tube of You, one of the two. But hopefully neither one kicks us off. But Rob, good to see you again, buddy.
You too. You too. Speaking of Facebook, I mean, you saw Mark Zuckerberg and his admission to being pressured by the Biden administration on censoring data, censoring information. About the Hunter laptop, about COVID, and such like that. And I'm of the opinion that admission of guilt is not enough. I think there has to be some punishment, and not only for him, but for anybody else who did it, any other companies, whether it was YouTube, whether it was, you know, Twitter at the time, uh, but also the administration for violating our rights. So, I mean, the First Amendment is clear. The government is not allowed to do those types of things. Now, your private company, your private individuals, whatever, they don't have to abide by the First Amendment, but the government absolutely does, and I think there needs to be some repercussions for that.
Yeah, I've seen some stuff on that about some folks going like, "Hey, a little too late," that kind of stuff, and I agree. I mean, it's almost like the when a newspaper prints a falsehood or untruth or whatever, a mistake even, and then a couple of days later, the correction comes out like page 6 at the bottom in small print, and by then the damage has been done, right? Depending on what the story's about, and to come out now and say, "Oh yeah, they pressured me," everything. Let me say this. He does nothing but feed the conspiracy beast because everything that the right and a lot of folks on the right or people that weren't on the right, but just, were thinking there was some conspiracy behind all this that they accused of, that they talked about. And and people that did, their family members, their loved ones, their friends, their coworkers, all thought they were wackadoos and thought they were just this extreme right, MAGA, racist, blah, blah, blah thing. Like this continues to just support and make everyone. I mean, you pretty much people have run out of conspiracy theories because everything's been proven true.
I think 73 million counts of election interference should be enough.
Yeah. It's to have him come on and say, "My bad, I'm not going to do it this time." Um, it just is. I don't know what changed his mind because I know after Trump was shot, he really came out and threw some kudos and threw some props to President Trump. Like that dude's a badass. This and that. I don't know if it was that or if it was just he realized that he's been misled by a dementia old man in his
Well,
administration.
I was watching a video by Vivek Ramaswamy, and they were at one of the UFC events. And Mark Zuckerberg has gotten really big into MMA, and Vivek was of the mindset that Mark, because of he's now involved in MMA, his circle is changing, and the people he's surrounding himself with are of a different mindset as well.
How's he
And
involved? Is he sponsoring it or what? Or he's just a fan?
he's a fan. He practices BJJ. He does do BJJ. Um, and he's a fan of MMA. So Vivek is, like I said, of the mindset that maybe his circle is changing, and maybe I don't by any means think he's gonna come in to be a full blown conservative, but look at somebody like what's his name that moved to Austin, Joe Rogan. I mean, Joe Rogan.
Right.
Not that Joe Rogan was ever a far leftist, but he was
No,
very, very left leaning, and then kind of
but
just
moderate left, and
yeah,
until he took the red pill, or
yeah,
part of it, or
yeah.
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of those different things, can influence how you think, especially, your circle, right? I mean, you hear Tim Kennedy talk about it all the time. Your circle needs to be small, and you trust those people within that circle.
Right.
The smaller your circle, the more trusting you are. And maybe Mark Zuckerberg maybe his circle is maybe a little bit more right leaning, and he's coming around. I don't
Yeah.
know. We'll see.
Whether there's repercussions or anything, I mean, the bottom line is people are gonna go like, "Oh shit, I guess the crazy uncle, my brother-in-law was in the military, my whatever, my dad, my grandpa were right." Maybe Fox News, One American News, Newsmax aren't that far off, right?
Well, the sad part is that there's still those that won't, right? I mean, they will
There are,
never admit it, or they
there are,
don't care.
right. Well, they are just we've seen this, right? People have more hatred for Trump than they do love for this country or for their own selves and their own families and security and financial being and everything
Yeah,
else, right?
that
Which is
tribalism.
why, yeah, which is why they're all still being that way, even though they know damn well that there's been nothing there. It's been an empty suit behind those black Ray-Bans and and all that kind of stuff. They'll still go that way, but even though
Well, I mean,
some of them went pretty quiet for almost 2 years. I'll just say that without posting anything political or doing anything until about July.
the
So
the worst assumption ever is the government would never do that. And that's not just our government, that's any government.
yeah,
You should always be free to question what your government is doing, and you should never, anytime you're being criticized for questioning what the government's doing, you're on target.
yep, yeah. And for those of us that have been in areas that maybe news events have generated out of or been involved with that, I could, whether it's being in combat and knowing what comes back through the press or whatever it may be, and you see what makes it back, and you realize, wow, that's like 2% of what's really going on. That's what for me keeps me up at night for the work I've done in the past, both military and not, where I go, wow, if that's gotten out, how much worse is it? Like it's really bad. Um, but yeah, it's again, maybe the people, the moderates, whatever that percentage is, 11 to 18 to 20% down the middle, that are somewhat still influenceable and aren't just heads down, one left or right, are looking at this going, okay, this, I mean, look, in 2021, 2021, 20 and 2021, even 22, right? If you didn't believe in the mask, didn't believe in the shot, didn't want to get it, right? Talked about how it wasn't doing anything, called it a China virus. Not only was social media shutting you down, your families were, your left leaning families, friends were cutting you off. I mean, there were people going through divorces. I mean, all that kind of mess, right? Everyone's like, how
Yeah.
dare you kill grandma and kill mom and dad and all the people because you won't wear a mask. And now, pretty much everyone's like, yeah, that was bullshit. Even the left, like, everyone, we went from, if you wrote that, you got your account shut down or stopped or something on social media, or your family that didn't believe, distance yourself or whatever, and and then you were shut down. The other day, side story, I was at, unfortunately, a couple funerals this week, and I was at the second one the other day, for both for old soldiers. I talked about it last week, and lady in front of me, didn't know her from Adam, and me and an old platoon sergeant that used to work for me and my wife were sitting there talking in the very back row before it started. And we got talking about, somehow, I don't even remember how we got on the topic of COVID and the vaccine and all this kind of stuff. And now we have a lot more info. We have a lot more intel. We have reputable sources and things that have happened and things that we know people have having issues with heart issues and stuff. We were talking about it. And these couple of ladies don't know him from anybody, like turn it like, sorry, we're eavesdropping. Like, we're right with you. One of them works in the medical industry. They're like, spot on. You're so right. I'm just like, they could have been around like, how dare you say that? They were like, nope, no, you're right. It was all BS. And, one of them was like, I work in a hospital. That's
Well,
exactly
there has been no apology
no.
from anybody, and not just the government, but from anybody. And there's been no repercussions. I mean, we've we've heard, it was a conspiracy early on that, oh, it didn't come out of a lab, it was not a lab leak, and then all of a sudden, and it was always weird to me that the Department of Energy went, yeah, it came out of the lab. I'm like, well, hold on, you're a Department of Energy. Why is this coming? That would just always seem odd to me. But then the intel agencies, came around and said, yeah,
Right.
it came out of a lab. So where are the repercussions to China? I mean, where
But
for all of the deaths,
right.
where's
Look at
this at?
the and I love that some of the media is trying to hammer President Trump on it, like, hey, if you get elected, are you going to hold China? They said this the other day. Are you going to hold them accountable? Are you going to do this for all of COVID? Like, well, you got a president now that could do that. Like,
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
trying to bait him, the guy who's saying, hey, got to work with President Xi, and we got to, work together. And he's, all this kind of stuff. They're like, well, what will you do about it? Well, what's the guy doing about it and the girl doing about it now who are in charge?
yeah.
And been in charge for 3.5 years. Now that we know, because when President Trump was in, when it first happened, by the time he changed over, that evidence wasn't concrete, or at least considered acceptable, or it was fake. Now everyone's like, "Help! It was them." Right? It's kind of like the 51 intel agency people in the Hunter laptop.
No
Now it's
apologies.
totally legit, right? Totally legit. People are coming out and apologize. Certain reporters, or who was it, Politico, or some of the news outlets, like, "Yep, it was right. It was spot on."
Yeah,
Facebook did, right? They even came out and said that.
yeah.
Yet those 51 people, I know they were recently asked not too long ago, and some of them were like, they would still stand by it. Like, we know it's BS. Like, it's legit
Well,
is.
everything in political is about how you say it and the question you ask, right?
Right.
They will stand by writing the letter. They won't stand by its validity. They won't stand by whether it was accurate. They will stand by writing it because it was a hit job against Trump.
Yeah.
And I mean, just you heard me say it on here a couple of times, and lo and behold, unfortunately, it almost happened. They will do everything, and that includes, and I have to say this for the world, I do not condone this, but they will do everything, and trying to kill him is within the realm of what they'll do. And we saw it, you know.
Yeah.
So
No, you're right. They've tried everything, remove him from the ballot, try to kill him, try to they throw every charge, 2 impeachments, blah, blah, blah. I think we've talked about it on here a couple times. I can't remember. I'm in so many different conversations, but I mean, it's just like, what's left? One, what's left? And two, it's kind of scary to think, what else can they come up? I mean, short of trying to kill someone, there's not much else you can come up with. And then when you talk about, I know we're going on tangents in different ways, but it's all connected. When you talk about feeding the conspiracy beast, this whole assassination attempt is definitely doing it, right? I don't know how people in charge in the government that are, college trained, experienced, been working in this for a long time, have years in the commercial civilian industry, leading people to whatever their background may be, short of being a bartender. They don't know what the hell they're talking about when they end up in Congress. But, you know, how can they think that by not being open, I mean, this is why I always laugh, Rob, when people would be like, 9/11 was an inside job and all that stuff. I'm like, you realize there ain't a freaking soul in the government that can keep a secret. Like, there's nothing that's that big
mhm,
that the government. I mean, we did nuclear testing back in the 40s and 50s, on soldiers, on civilians and stuff. And of course, back then no one knew about it. But even because we have the media and the things now, everyone talked to, yeah, we did. We put soldiers right there at a bomb site, and yeah, they all ended up dying of radiation, and that's just the way it was. There's no way 9/11 could be an inside job. There's no way the government could keep that secret for more than a half a second. And that's why I laugh at people when they say stuff like that. And I go, wow, you really don't know how leaky and like the
right.
way our government operates.
Well, to the the Trump assassination attempt and conspiracy theories in general, it goes right back to there's no repercussions. The government doesn't care what lies they tell or how many times they tell it, because they know they're not going to face any repercussions, which is one of the reasons I think that they're afraid of Trump, and they're afraid of RFK Jr. being a member of that squad, because he wants to know, he wants to peel back the onion and see what's
Right.
underneath it. So
It's
yeah,
interesting what he said the other day when he had RFK, when he endorsed him, and said that as soon as he gets in, he says, I don't know. I mean, he did a lot last time, but he said he is going to declassify everything about the assassination of JFK. And I hope he does that. That shit was long overdue. But yeah, it's just, but again, the assassination thing, more is coming out right now. We're finding out who actually took the shot. The FBI washing down the roof of the building, right? That's not the FBI's job, right? That's if anything, it'd sit up there and bake to the sun until someone from that owns the building probably went up there and said, "Hey, can I go ahead and clean this off because it's just
Yeah.
attracting flies or something," right? And all this kind of stuff. I mean, and then cremating it so fast, this and that for the investigations done, and like that's what feeds the beast of conspiracy theory, and conspiracies keep coming true. So, just be open, honest, transparent. Shit, this is what happened. Yeah, we screwed up. We had a whole bunch of people that aren't real, field Secret Service agents out there doing stuff. They're all from the office, and we were shorthanded, and we had too many events happening that day, and between the first lady and Michelle Obama and this and that, whoever, right? Just be open and honest. People go, okay, wow, that sucks. You guys screwed up. You're going to hold them accountable, but I trust you. And
You have
now,
better luck. You have better luck finding a dragon than you do getting a truth and honesty out of anything in Washington, whether
this is
it's
what.
the intel agencies or a politician.
Well, we've always expected and known that when a politician's lying is because their lips are moving, but we now have organizations and agencies that used to be above reproach, right? Whether it be the CDC, right? The FBI. Now we add to that the Secret Frickin' Service. We had agencies that were not partisan in any way. NIH, that, when they told us stuff, we took it lock, stock, and barrel. We believed it. We trusted it because they should not have been partisan or supporting anyone who's whatever party's in the office. Now, all of those agencies have lost complete respect, and including every agency of the intelligence community, right? CIA, all the rest of them in there. Is there an agency left that you
Um,
think still has the respect of anyone that we think may be the truth and not partisan whacked?
No, and I think that's probably just the natural occurrence for things, right? I mean, over time, as you get, people in there that are ingrained, and you get generations of people who think a certain way, and agencies, especially in the intel, start gaining more and more authority. I think it's inevitable that they're going to just get out of control and um, corrupt themselves. I think that's just inevitable. I think you just need to start getting rid of agencies and rebuild.
I mean, how much can you gut? I mean, we know that there's a lot of good people that work in all those agencies, right? And I've worked close with some of them that are good. I've worked with people that are left and right. I know there's people in legislative offices because I've worked with them and know that. And I won't go into the specifics, but they may work for one side and they totally believe in the other, but it's just a job, right?
Right.
That's all it is. They may work for extreme left liberal, old school liberal or conservative congressman or senator, but hey, they're just on staff and they just bounce from job to job while they're trying to work their way up, and this and that. They'll support them, do everything, but doesn't mean they march right along with them and believe in everything they do. They're doing staff work, you
Right.
know.
Well, but look at all the different departments. Whether you're talking about Department of Homeland Security, or you're talking about Health and Human Service, whatever it is, every one of those departments, since its establishment, are now probably 1 to 300% larger than they have ever been. So
Yeah.
now these departments and agencies simply become self-protecting, right? And they're going to do whatever they do to protect themselves.
Well,
Um,
if you remember, President Trump tried to get rid of OPM. Was it OPM or GSA? OPM, when he was in office, and he was close because I work a lot with government agencies, and they pretty much got the marching order, the warning order that they were going to be disbanded and split up into other agencies and take over their duties and stuff. And
right,
and he never got through that. Now he's talking about that if he wins, that the Department of Education is gone. Um, and I think, many reasons I hope he gets elected, but one of them is I think he's not going to lack of better term, pussyfoot around with all this stuff, and he's not going to worry about offending people. That like he said the other day in a speech, when he came in last time, he didn't know all those people, right? He knew a lot of people in the business world, but he didn't know a lot of people in Washington. He knew a few, and he's hired and fired even more. But as he said the other day, he goes, "I know them now. I know who they are." Right? He knows what they're about. He knows how deep and wide this swamp is. And I think, and he's got nothing to lose. And I think if he says, "Hey, and he's on campaigning saying," and I say this because everything he promised in his first run for office, he pretty much did. That was within his power, right? Moving the embassy to Jerusalem, doing everything he said he was going to do, he did. So if he says it's what he's planning to do when he gets back in office, then I take it as gospel because he's already proven that he doesn't flip flop, he doesn't backtrack and that kind of stuff.
Right.
So if he says he's getting rid of the Department of Education, he's putting it back down to the states, then I'm assuming the Department of Education is those folks better be looking for other jobs on USA.gov or
Well,
US.
what a lot of people forget is, I mean, something like the Department of Education. That's a good example. That was created by Carter, so it's not like it's been around for
Right.
hundreds of years, right? The Department of Education was created by Jimmy Carter, so that is the '80s. It is a department that's not been around that long, and in my opinion, has probably done more damage than good because since the Department of Education was established, the U.S. education system has gone downhill. We've ranked lower and lower in education each year in its existence.
Yeah.
Let student debt get out of control because we put in guaranteed student loans, because it's a program that the Department of Education pushes for. Those are the things that we can do away with and push those back to the states. I do agree we need student loans need to be fixed, but forgiving them is not the fix, and the Department of Education is not the one to fix them.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah. And I'll tell you, this may seem a little extreme or something, but another agency, probably the most recent major created agency, cabinet level, that could probably be gotten rid of and absorbed certain duties and stuff into other agencies is DHS. Right.
yes,
Department
yeah,
of Homeland Security came about as of 9/11, and it's taken under things underneath its control, like different other agencies and things like that have rolled up underneath it. And I think the FBI is the police force from within the U.S. and domestically, right? Agency, the CIA faces outwards. And I think if you put the right people in the FBI, people that worry about policing and stuff like that, they could go back to there. If you're going to have air marshals, they probably belong to the Department of Transportation, not underneath DHS, right? They're
yeah,
securing transportation,
yeah.
right? That kind of stuff. But anyways,
Well, a quick search: the Department of Education has 4,400 employees and a $68 billion budget.
yeah, and our students are ranked where exactly?
Yeah, yeah,
Well, look at the VA, right? The largest government agency there is employee wise, right? It's the largest government agency there is. Um, and as well as I do, as well as many of our listeners and viewers who have to deal with the VA, know there's a lot of oxygen thieves that roam those halls that could be gotten rid of really quick. And then President Trump did a lot with that too. But a lot of them were protected by unions and this and that, whatever. The VA could definitely be. There's some good people in the VA. There are people there that care about soldiers and veterans because they have most of them have a family connection of some kind, and they're doing it out of they think it's the right. They want to help and contribute. And I have no number. I have no facts. I have no surveys behind this. This is just my gut. Born and raised at Fort Bragg, and then spent my own entire career in the military, and then raised a son in the military, and an entire family. It's my whole life. That is a smaller percentage. That is a minority of the people at the VA than versus the people. And I've had many soldiers I've served with who've went on and worked and served and retired out of the VA. Who again, they were ones that did it for it was a noble thing. There's a lot of people in there and in all different parts of the Department of Defense. I've worked with many of them that are literally oxygen thieves that are just wasting our tax dollars.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um,
I mean, some of the prettiest VA buildings around are some of the worst VAs to visit.
yeah, I talked about it last week, right? That the head of the VA in Buffalo and his chief of staff were fired last Monday the same day that a good friend of mine and fellow soldier passed away from cancer while under VA care,
Mm.
if you would call it that. On the same day because of long wait times and not taking care and giving people a hard time to get in, and they were just a little too late in firing them. Again, that's what I talked about earlier. If that made the news and he got fired in this administration, I was telling my wife this, how bad has this guy been that they actually fired someone at the head of the VA when this administration hasn't done anything else for really supporting veterans benefits.
Right.
But anyways, hey, we went on. I know we had a list of topics we were talking about, and we've jumped on a number of them. I'm going to jump on one and then throw it over to you, and we'll just kind of bounce back and forth if that's good. If
Okay.
we haven't covered them already, this is just something I've been thinking about for a while. I don't think I talked about it on the show, but it is kind of related to what I talked about with DHS, right? 9/11. And this was something I was in a work meeting the other day, and we were talking about it, and you know there was something interesting I noticed in reflection a while back about 9/11, and that is when we think about that day and we heard the let's roll and we heard the reports and people, if you haven't, you did go find them where the family members got phone calls from those on the plane and left messages, or better yet, for the example of flight 93, one of the guys called and his wife told him what had happened. The other two planes went down, and to let them know exactly what was going on. And if it wasn't, and they knew they had to take action and not just go along with the hijackers, hoping that maybe they get let go. They knew there was no chance, right?
Right.
All of that was because there were phones in planes. After 9/11, all the phones went away. And it was just kind of an epiphany I had. But like, why was that, right? They were always expensive. I remember seeing them, right? If you had a phone, like, I remember being on a plane before them. Someone pulled, got on the phone and was talking to someone on a plane. You're like, dude, that dude's rich. Like, that dude's paying like $4 a minute. Like, how important is that
Right.
freaking
Yeah.
call? Right. Of course, this is way before Wi-Fi on planes and stuff now. But we had all those phones and seat backs. And had those phones not been there, 9/11 would have turned out a lot different.
Right.
I'll say it. That damn plane in 93 probably would have hit whatever it was going for in DC. The Capitol building, if they hadn't shot it down, first, because we know now that fighters were done, that would have happened too, right? But who's not? But 9/11 would have looked a lot different. We could turn back time and not have those phones on those planes when that happened. How much different 9/11 would look, because there would be no calls back to family saying we've been hijacked, and now which there were people were doing, right? There were flight attendants calling their main offices, telling them what's going on. All that was intel that was moving real quick, maybe not quick enough in some cases, but in hindsight, it helped us also do our investigations, right? Just those phone calls helped figure out what was going on. After 9/11, I don't remember when, because I was flying during that, right? I mean, I was traveling all the time, but somewhere after that, the phones just disappeared.
Yeah,
Eh,
it's probably an overreaction, as most government does. I mean, I think DHS was an overreaction by the government. It was an excuse to create a new bureaucracy full of you know fraud, waste, and abuse. I mean, because think about it, how much has DHS really stopped since they've been in existence? You can think of the shoe bomber and the underwear bomber are the two that come to mind.
but
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 all of
DHS,
the
but agents didn't stop it.
right.
People with situational awareness and
Right.
hypervigilant people notice, why is that dude trying to lie to his
Well, it
underwear?
was the other
Yeah,
things we put in place, the
right.
tighter security at airports and things like that that stopped it.
Reinforced doors and that kind of
Right.
stuff and everything.
But
Yeah.
those phones coming off were probably an overreaction going, hey, we can't have this. Someone's going to sneak, who knows? Maybe someone's
I
going
don't
to sneak a
yeah,
bomb
no, I
into
mean,
it.
they weren't the cause. They weren't
Right.
the terrorists weren't using them to call back and get directions or get orders, right? They were on autopilot, for lack of forgive the pun. They knew what they had to do to accomplish their mission.
Hmm.
But it was just like, say, a while back, kind of look back, like, man, those things help probably save lives. I think they very well could have saved lives, at least for Flight 93.
Right.
Um, had that plane gotten farther, maybe it wouldn't have got to DC. Maybe they would have just putting it down in Philadelphia if they didn't think that, or once they saw fighters were coming after them or radioing saying, land or we'll shoot you down. Right?
Right.
They could have done any of that stuff. And I don't know why I thought about it recently, not too long ago, but I was just like, man, uh, why did we get rid of them? What was so bad at them? Not that I'd use them, and now we have Wi-Fi and everything,
Yeah.
but still, it's just curious thought. I just don't know where they went or why. And I need to. I guess I need to do some research and figure out why they got pulled out.
Maybe it was the pervasiveness of cell phones now too as well.
Maybe, but you can't use them in the air. I mean,
No, no,
I'm
but
on
your
Teams calls
Wi-Fi.
all the time in the air, and I don't talk. People are like, Troy, you got to unmute yourself, and I'm like, I'm on a plane at 30,000 feet. I ain't unmuting anything.
Yeah,
Like, you can talk on a Teams or Zoom call in the air,
yeah.
but I just don't want to be that a hole because I've been on planes where the second the wheels squeak before the smoke comes off, and there are people jumping on their phones right next to me, and I'm like, dude, like, give it a break. But anyways, what what do you got, Rob?
Um, so there's a big blow up in California about a new program where they're going to start giving, at least the way it's written. And I've gone and I've read the text of the law, and basically the words that come to mind are regardless of immigration status. So to me, that means anybody on the planet that comes here, whether legally or illegally, can now get a loan and extended access to taxpayer funded loans and such for housing in California. And I think that is a yet another in a long string of laws in California that is a spit in the face to the American taxpayer. I mean, when you put in wording like regardless of immigration status, now it doesn't say must be a green card holder, doesn't say you're here on a work visa. It says regardless of immigration status. That is so open ended that
And isn't it
somebody,
like a $150,000 loan or up to
yes,
150,000?
$150,000 loan.
What does it
Now,
get you? A shoe box in California? I mean, it doesn't get you much.
doesn't get you much, but I mean that could get you, your down payment. That could get you, maybe
Yeah,
you're buying just empty property. I mean, we've had a big problem with China buying up a lot of property around the country.
yep,
So you could have hundreds of people from China because again, regardless of immigration status, come in, suck up all the tax money by applying for this, and start buying up anything and everything that they want
yeah.
on the American taxpayer's dime. And I think that is just yet another. Those are the kind of
Is this a
laws.
proposal or is it an actual law in place now?
No, I've read it, and it's already. I think it's passed one house, and it's working on its way through the other.
I mean, it's
Uh,
using California tax dollars, right?
yes, it is.
Which is probably why Tesla is moving out. I think the X offices closed down, or Elon Musk, not Tesla.
Yeah.
They closed down on Friday the 13th is when they closed down,
So
and April.
California passes bill extending $150,000 housing assistance to illegal immigrants. Controversial measure allows access to interest-free loans up to $150,000 for home purchases.
Interest free, man.
Interest free.
Yeah.
That
Oh,
those are the kinds of things. And
they got. I wonder, do they realize they have an $80 billion shortfall in California? It's $80 billion with a
they
B.
don't care. They don't care. The wife and I talk about that a lot. Whether it's um, local, you know, uh, police. Like let's use Austin as an example because I used to live there. Whenever there would be a police shooting, and Austin, for those that don't know, is very left leaning. Whenever there would be a police shooting, they didn't care about the payouts to the family, whether they were right or wrong, because they would just simply raise taxes on people who lived in Austin. It's not their money. They don't care. They have an endless supply of taxes that they can just continue to tax and tax and tax and tax, and they don't care. Their insurance premiums aren't theirs to worry about. They don't care about a budget, obviously, because there's not a major city on this planet that manages their budget appropriately. Because if they all they have to do is look at Washington, Washington can't manage a budget, so why should Austin? They simply don't care. So California doesn't care. They'll just raise taxes. I mean, look at what they did with the gas tax a couple of years ago. I mean, it's the highest in the country.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
They
No,
don't
it's I know that's where when you always hear about news reports when they're talking about gas prices and they're always like gas prices are now the average is whatever 4.35 except in California it's
care.
$6. It's always like crazy.
But I'm hoping everybody looks because California continues to shoot themselves in the foot, and Kamala Harris is as tied to California and the policies being passed there as anybody else. more so than Biden ever was, because that's where she came from. That's where she was a senator out of. That's where
Yeah.
she was, an attorney general. She and Gavin Newsom, whether they want to try to separate themselves or not, are tied at the hip. And people need to look at that. The American taxpayers need to look at what's going on in California, because they will push for that in Washington if Kamala Harris gets
Is
elected.
that different than her and Willie Brown were tied at the hip? That's a different kind of tied at the hip?
Probably a little bit different, but who
Okay,
knows?
I was
Who
just
knows?
asking. I wasn't sure how the California politics work.
Who knows? I mean,
Yeah,
Gavin.
it's something, and I mean, it can't be that bad. President Biden just started the first week of his 2-week vacation. He went out there after the DNC, went out to California. So, I'm assuming where he was, the crime wasn't that bad, and all that. So,
He didn't
but
come
yeah,
off the beach.
well, no, he went from that to the beach in Delaware. It's amazing, he was at the DNC saying he's still our president and he's got 5 more months and he's to work every single day to fulfill all of his promises and all stuff. I guess that every single day starts on September 1st or after Labor Day,
I,
because um, week to week, 2 vacations back to back. I mean, man, you
yeah,
wouldn't know. I guess the world's been is everything's peachy keen in the world. Everything's great. The leader, the largest free nation and democracy in the world, just does double vacations.
just
That's
more proof he's not the one running the. He's not
life
the one
is
at the
good.
helm.
Is he doing his timesheet? I'm wondering how much vacation time he has on the timesheet. I'm just wondering. Or is that just my problem? That's
He's
what.
not the one at the helm. We've known that for quite a while.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah. So speaking of him and kind of his protege too, Kamala, whatever. I don't know. She has got a big interview tonight. I guess some things are coming out about it. She's on CNN, pre-recorded. She has her VP with her in case she, says something wrong. I guess just she has a backup there. But some little things are leaking out now. She throws some word salad out there, it sounds like, and she's got some flip flopping going on. So that's coming up in 20 minutes. I guess it's going to air on CNN with, of course, a very left leaning Dana Bash. But that's supposed to be a big one. Her first interview in almost 40 days.
yeah, yeah, and she had to have her boy,
Uh,
her stolen valor buddy, next to her in order to do it. I
yeah,
mean,
that's what does that say? I mean, I wonder for the women listening and watching. I mean, especially for some of my family members and friends who I know that maybe are planning to vote for her. I mean, what does that say when you sit there and tout with I'm with her and all proud and first woman president, breaking glass ceiling, first woman vice president, maybe president, and all that stuff, and she can't do an interview without a guy there to protect her and cover her. I mean, what is she going to have her VP like running over from his house to her house every time she has to do a red phone talk with the president of Russia or China or
I mean, let's be honest. Biden's not running the ship today. If she gets elected, she's not going to be running the ship. It is all of the Obama. I mean, she just added Eric Holder to her kind of staff to help her with debates and such. I mean, that's an Obama holdover. That was the old attorney general under Obama. All of the old Obama regime are the ones running the show now. I mean, even Anthony Blinken, all of those are all Obama holdovers, um,
yeah.
and they're running the ship. So if
Yeah.
she gets elected, she will do nothing. Nothing will change. It will be the same policies that we have today.
Obama will get his fourth term.
He'll get his fourth term. Uh, Inflation will continue to rise. We'll continue to have an influx of migrants over a porous border. Uh, you know, we'll continue to have inflation and gas prices skyrocketing, and nothing's going to change. And she'll just be this. But hey, it will be joyous. It's not going to
Well,
have mean tweets, and it's going to be very uplifting and joyous, according to CNN.
so let me kind of things I've read and things I've people I trust and listen to, including some in the Democratic Party that are pretty well connected that I'm friends with. Um, I'll just kind of roll all that up into one, and you may say it's a conspiracy theory, but this is my gut feel. Some of this I know is fact, so I'll just kind of keep it. I'll just say it's all my gut feel. Um, they knew whoever's in charge that Biden was not going to make it Obviously they saw the polls. They knew he was being tanked. That's why they did the debate 5 months out earlier than ever before. They set him up to fail. They knew that was going to happen, and they put it in a way that and of course the rules were established that so he couldn't get a break or whatever and had to be up there and all that stuff. They put him out there. They knew it was going to happen. However, I don't think the powers that be, whoever those are, thought that that Kamala was going to be in there. In fact, the things I've seen and heard, again, firsthand, not just on news stories or talking heads, is that the plan was for them to actually do some kind of pseudo convention or whatever and redelegate and all that kind of stuff, and that one thing I'd heard was he was so pissed about Obama and Pelosi and all them coming out, Jeffries and Schumer, telling him to step down and essentially threatening him to, that he knew they did not want Kamala in it. Nobody did. That's why he picked her, to protect himself. So he would always know when to try to 25th him. Otherwise, they would have 25th him months ago.
Right.
And he endorsed her. And, we talked about it, I think before, was like, once he was stepping down, there was no way she wasn't going to get it because the party of identity politics wasn't going to make the VP, who was one heartbeat away from being the president, saying, "Oh, you're not good enough to be the president, and we're going to pick someone else," and probably was going to be a male, maybe even a white male, like a Newsom or something. But he was like, "Oh, I'm getting out." And that's why he didn't endorse her right away. I don't know when that decision came, but it was later. And then he endorsed her, and no one else endorsed her until after he did. Then they had no choice. That was his final FU of like, "Oh, you're pushing me out. I'm going to set you up for failure. You're not going to bring in." He probably knew. They probably said, and this is just me speculating, of who they wanted to get in there, whether it's Newsom or whoever it was. But he was like, "Nope, I'm taking you guys down with me, and I'm nominating her," because he knew that's not who they wanted.
Right.
And then they were stuck with her. And it was, they forced him 5 months prior, before any other normally do a debate. They knew he was going to fall flat. I mean, he wasn't all pumped up like he was on a whole bunch of pre-workout. He didn't have the typical State of the Union or even later on speech kind of excitement. I mean, that's what everyone thought. He would come out like going 1,000 miles an hour and all yelling and all that stuff. They didn't give him those meds that day.
Right.
And he just came out there and kind of just stared like he did on the lawn in Juneteenth celebration, just kind of like froze. It was all a setup, a complete conspiracy. And for Nancy Pelosi to come out and admit that she knew he wasn't going to, it was the campaign, it wasn't him, and that's why they had to do it when he was already voted in through the primaries, is a complete violation of the democratic process and how our electoral process works.
Well, I mean, look at what they did to Bernie Sanders. I mean, they don't care. They don't care.
No, they don't care. But this was the process. It worked. He was the candidate. He was the guy with the delegate vote. He was the guy with the primary votes. And rather than say, "Well, let's just get him as ready and do the best thing he can," they just said, "You need to step aside because we know you're not going to win." I mean, it's almost like you're going into whatever competition, and rather than take the L, well, let me do that. You're in a college class. You're going to fail. Hey, when do I have to get my W in? When do I have to withdraw so it doesn't hurt my GPA?
Right.
Oh, by Friday? Okay, I'll withdraw on Thursday. That way I'll just retake the class again next time. That's exactly what they did.
Well, and now they're stuck, right? Because if he steps down, let's say he would have stepped down today, and Kamala would then be removed off of the trail, right? She would be removed off the campaign trail, and would have to be in front of the American people or not. They could hide her in the basement, but the American people would see firsthand what it's going to look like under her. So they
See,
they
themselves. I predicted they were going to do that, and I was wrong, and I know now why I was wrong. I thought that once he withdrew, and I even said it on the show, I figured they were going to 25th him right away, and it probably was an option, so they could get her 5 or 6 months of executive experience, right, and show, hey, she was running the country. Look how good she is. And that's where I thought they were going to go. But I think they went the other way, which is like, well, hasn't been running it anyways. Other people are running it. She can't handle even doing an interview or a lot off the cuff speech. There's no way she can be the president and be campaigning. She can't do both, right? and that's why they came out this way. But I was really thinking they would 25th him, and they would go down the path of, look, she's doing a good job, 5 or 6 months. But now in hindsight, I look and I go, I was wrong because I don't think they have confidence in she can do the job.
Well, what really is astounding to me, and you see it in probably in the social media world more than anything, the attacks on Tulsi Gabbard, whom the Democrats shoved aside, put on the no-fly list, the attacks on JFK Jr., whom Democrats attacked and refused to give Secret Service to. And then they're surprised that those two individuals didn't toe and lick the boots of the Democrat Party and fall in line. It
Yeah.
they thought, they just thought that was going to be like Bernie Sanders did. Yep,
Yeah,
you screwed me
he
over.
fell right in line. He
I'm going
sat
to,
up there in that
yeah,
chair with his little arms crossed and his little mittens on and just took the licking
yeah.
and that kind of stuff. Yeah,
And RFK Jr. and Tulsi didn't, and they act surprised. They're
that's the
like,
difference between an established
right,
old school Democrat like Bernie and that kind of stuff,
yeah,
and you know the new Democrats which aren't gonna count. I mean, like Kennedy, RFK's got the Kennedy name, you know,
sure,
and the bottom line is, had he been not anti-vax, they would have taken him he would have been a, you know, they would have pushed Joe aside and he would have been it, right? But he did not follow the narrative of being pro-vax, and that's he everything else. The dude is super progressive.
yeah,
Like, I hope Trump gives him something. Maybe he'll put him in charge of NIH or something. I don't know, or CDC. But you know, he's pretty damn more left than probably Kamala or Waltz are on a lot of topics. He just doesn't believe in vaccinations.
right.
But I was not a fan. Like, people were like, oh, maybe RFK Jr. Like, sure, you don't want that dude. Like, he's more far left than,
Well, whether it's vaccinations or just simply uncontrollable, right? I mean, I look back, and you can always look at history, you know, with a different set of eyes, right? Bush, both of them very controllable. Clinton, very controllable. Obama, very controllable. They all will toe the line and do what they're supposed to do,
because money is what drives
regardless.
them. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think Kennedy would have, or they were afraid that he wouldn't have. He would have been like Trump, and they couldn't have controlled him. And I think that scared them. I
Yeah.
think, you know, he's going to say, you know, I mean, much like just like JFK, and say, well, you know what, I'm going after the intel agencies. And in my opinion, I mean, and I'm not the only one thinks this conspiracy theory. That's why they had him killed. You know, um, I think that they probably were very scared of what he was going to do if he were to get there and not be controllable.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get it. And Tulsi definitely wasn't. But yeah, they
Yeah,
pushed Tulsi aside like they pushed Bernie aside twice, right?
yeah.
And they did the same thing to RFK Jr.
And then are
And
surprised when they support Trump.
yeah, and they're prepping him for the debate, which is great because Tulsi destroyed Kamala in the DNC
Oh,
debates. I mean, she just, and you know, and it gives you know, especially if they have her play the Kamala role, and say you can't, you know, because obviously I think that's why Kamala wants the mics unmuted, because they're hoping that Trump says something and she can do the whole play the whole, oh, you're yelling at a woman, won't let me talk kind of thing, right? They're going to play
they're
that.
going to play that card regardless. They're going to
Yeah,
play the race card and the misogyny card.
right, right.
That's
Yeah.
they're going to.
So I'm glad they're prepping him and all that kind of stuff. Um, I'll admit it, Rob. I'll be surprised if the debate happens and she doesn't find a reason not to do it. I mean, think about it. She's went 40 days. They're doing a pre-taped interview today. Apparently, still word salad in there and stuff. I mean, she is not near smart or quick on the cuff. Like, I mean, he could just put JD Vance against her. I mean, Trump didn't have the debater. He could be like, "No, nah, my VP will handle you. VP to VP, right? JD will destroy her." I
Yeah,
mean, I've been watching these press briefings, right? And you know, when you the one from their side is Kamala and Waltz interviewing each other, some weird thing. JD's going every day. I mean, today he went in front of the firefighters union, got booed by him. That dude goes in front of everybody. I
yeah.
mean, and he talks. He's got his talking points down. He is a great orator, and he'll do great. But if they, I'll just be surprised. I mean, I saying it about the Biden debate too. I was like, he may bounce at the last second, but now that we look back in hindsight, oh well, he was set up. There's a reason why it happened.
Sure.
Man, I don't know if they want Kamala going up against Trump, because if he comes in as measured and disciplined and just lets her talk, It's almost like Biden again. It's like you don't have to say anything. Just let him talk, and he's going to ruin himself.
Sure.
Just let her talk.
Yeah.
Throw zingers at her, like, why are you flip flopping about this or whatever? And I mean, that may be all he has to do. He may have to say very little. I'm not sure they're going to let that happen, but I don't know. You know,
I mean, they very easily could shoot themselves in the foot. I mean, the whole waltz thing. I mean, that's not going away. You know, his especially in the veteran community, there's a lot of veterans that are not happy. I mean, you being a combat veteran, when people lie about going to combat, that's a good thing. You know, and with
well,
what,
we talked about it last week, right?
yeah,
It's more so than any of all the violations he did. It's the not going with his troops is the most inexcusable thing, right? Everything else, I don't give a damn if he said he had these medals or fired a Gatling gun in combat or whatever. None of
sure,
that matters up to you weren't there to do the ramp ceremony for your fallen soldiers. Your replacement was.
yeah.
Right.
Well, but I mean, the media is playing it. Oh, you're attacking a 24-year veteran. No, there is a difference. Both things can be true at the same time. He spent 24 years in the Guard, and he lied about his service for political gain. Both of those can be true at the same time, and they are. He did lie about his service. He lied about his rank. He lied about deploying. He lied about carrying weapons in war. He's lied at every step, and we just can't let that go. And hopefully, JD Vance hammers him with that every chance he gets.
Yeah.
Um, so I wanted to quickly talk about there's a building in Colorado, a like an apartment complex that
Yep.
they've let migrants, they're housing migrants there,
I heard
and
there's three of them, right? Three. I heard three different apartments.
yeah, and it's gotten out of control. There's been numerous Venezuelan gang members in the apartments, and now there's nightly fights and police visiting, and it is getting wildly out of control. Now, one of the big talking points by the Democrats is, no, immigrants are peaceful. They come here and they're not causing problems and they're not making the crime rate go up. That these types of things that come out, this close to the election are going to give them a black eye, and I hope it does. Not again, not that all immigrants are bad. That's not what I'm saying here, but there are cases where there are problems, right? And again, it's another spit in the face to the American taxpayer. How many homeless people do you have in rural Colorado that don't get an apartment, paid for by the taxpayers, that,
Right.
that are not causing problems, that are not doing
But
drugs,
now
that,
they don't have
that
to pay, right? Because they're taking over as the landlords and everything, right?
yeah,
Management's pushed out, and they
yep,
just own the building.
yep. And it's not just there. I mean, I think it's in Brooklyn. There's also a spot where they're doing a male only immigrant building that is raising some concerns. Now, I was
That would in
18.
back in the day, that'd be called a compound, but
It
just
would
say
be called a compound. But I mean, you were 18, 19, 20 years old, just like I was, and things get pretty rowdy, especially when you have a whole bunch of males in there. I mean, think about the barracks on a Friday night, with
right.
a bunch of 18, 19-year-olds. And now you
They'd be
take all
throwing
these.
some alcohol and drugs and guns
Sure. And now you take a bunch of immigrants, a bunch of male immigrants who haven't necessarily assimilated with our society and our laws and
who don't
rules,
care about our society,
who don't
anything
care.
here. Yeah.
Yeah,
They've
it
given
is
them everything.
it is a recipe for disaster, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And it's going to, the media is probably going to try to hide it. They're probably going to try to not, let all this out, but it's going to explode. It's going to explode in their
I mean,
face.
it's been happening. I mean, I'm in this socialist state of New York, and there's they overloaded New York City's all the hotels and stuff, and they're all over the streets, and then they started shipping them out to all over the state to counties that would take them. Mine was one of them, and they've taken over complete hotels for well over a year now. The one not far from where I live has been they got occupied June of last year. Um, they have rapes, they have assaults. Friends of mine that are firefighters have responded to calls here. Two different friends of mine that are firefighters, EMTs, have told me the same thing without knowing the other one said. Holes in the walls, the places are destroyed, this and that, whatever. I can tell you, driving by the place, there are bikes and basketball hoops and strollers everywhere. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of just kids equipment and this and that, whatever. There's no respect for it, just dropped, thrown down, whatever. Um, that's happening now, especially the rapes, assaults, and attacks and stuff are happening now in where there's, males and females and families.
Right.
So yeah, you throw all males in a thing, and there's a whole bunch of bravado and testosterone, and everyone trying to be the biggest cock on the block, and there's going to be problems.
Well, and the first police that go in there, the first shooting or the first arrest or something, the media is going to just jump on it, like
Yeah,
uh, like a pack of wolves on a three-legged cat. They're going to jump on it, and they're going to blow it. All the police are mean to migrants. That's what they're going to say. Regardless of the reasoning being why they're there, they're going to jump on it, and it's inevitable. It's going to happen when you create that recipe. It's gonna be a disaster.
yeah, yeah. I didn't. So you told me tonight. I didn't know about the male only one, but I guess that's mostly what's coming across, right? Is work military age males, and that's pretty much it. There's no families, there's no kids in cage kind of stuff. But honestly, again, it's not covered by the media because it's not supporting some narrative, right? If it was Trump in charge, they'd be all down at the border. But they're not, so they just forget about it. But yeah, so hey,
Well, I mean,
nothing.
South America have been emptying their prisons and sending them here. I mean,
Yeah, do you
that's
blame
been
them? Do you
you
blame them? I mean, when you got your you could take whatever, right? You could we use a military analogy, right? Your platoon sergeant or first sergeant comes to you and says, "Hey, you got to give up 3 guys to go be part of some transition temporary whatever unit, or loan them out to somebody."
you
You
don't
ain't
get the
picking the
best.
rock stars.
Yeah,
You're picking the 2 dudes you're about the chapter, and the one that you think may be mentally handicapped and not sure how he got in the army. That's who you're sending over to the special IED clearing platoon, right?
yeah,
Or something like that. That you're making provisional unit. You're making on the fly. You're not sending your top badass squad leaders and a couple team leaders and a machine gunner, right?
right.
You're keeping
Yeah,
your good guys to yourself. You're dumping your trash on someone else, right? That's
yeah.
exactly what those countries have been doing.
But that's all 11 Bravos, isn't it? No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Ah, nice one. You combo weenies. Um, but yeah. So one more thing I want to hit tonight before we lose cut off here is I want to make people. Everyone's focusing on this debate. It's September 10th. I'm actually going to be in Tejas then, but I'll be in the ATX. But it's coming out September 10th. But keep an eye before that, and if the debate is still going on, make sure that it's going to be all over the news. But on September 9th, the House Committee on the report on the Afghanistan withdrawal is supposed to drop. So that is going to be something to watch, and that is probably going to feed that debate.
Yes.
But that is supposed to drop on the 9th of September. It is going to be truly what happened, how bad it is. I'm good friend Dave Bellavia. I think has seen parts of it. I saw an interview with him the other day when I think he did on with Laura Ingraham or somebody, and he's seen parts of it, and it's like it is going to blow people's socks off on the amount of just mistakes and ineptitude that happened as a part of that withdrawal and collapse of Kabul back in 3 years ago in August. Right now,
In
right now,
politics, nothing happens by accident. If it
that's
happens,
right.
it was
That's
meant to
right.
happen. It was
Yep.
planned that way.
But it was meant to happen to have you on the show with me tonight, man. I was glad you're here. Anything else you want to say to people before we wrap up?
No, just go vote. Go vote when it's time. And
Yep. And
yeah,
make sure people are out there voting.
absolutely.
But yeah. Well, hey, thanks a lot, Rob, for coming on. Appreciate you filling in tonight, man. Great catching up with you.
Got
And
the
thanks to those that are listening, watching. Great to see. There you go. We both
got
got
the
our
gear for grunts.
Gear for Grunts on. Great to see Conan and Noella and everyone else, Mom, and everyone in the chat. Some folks we ain't seen in a long time. Thank you, everybody. Stay tuned in our socials. We'll get another stream up besides Facebook and YouTube since our X got shut down. And just watch everything. Stay tuned. Try to still trying to get more shows that we can. So thank you, everybody. Everyone, have a good night.